Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Melly, and I have here Tami Galbraith, who is going to be sharing about her journey through using yoga and everything that yoga has provided for her. So I will quickly introduce Tami. She is a trauma-informed yoga teacher who teaches from her heart with over 100 hours of plus of trauma training, relax and renew level 1 teacher training, certifications in prenatal yoga, corporate yoga, chair yoga, ergonomics, and Reiki. She brings a unique understanding to all her classes. She is an advocate for women's rights and volunteers much of her time to service and advocacy of those rights. She is a student for life and continues to take classes, workshops, and retreats from a variety of teachers so she can grow within herself and be able to share that with her students. So I'm so happy to be able to talk to Tami. I've known her since the beginning of my online journey, and she's been there every step of the way. And we've collaborated together, and she's just such a beautiful soul. So thank you, Tami, for chatting with me today.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah. So for those who don't know you, do you want to share where you're from and, a little bit about how you got started?
Sure. So I live in a town called Bourbonnais, Illinois. It's about an hour south of Chicago. My yoga journey probably started over 10 plus years ago. A little bit of just doing online yoga and things like that. And then my very first yoga class was actually, I should say, my first public yoga class was actually through a park district. And I asked my friend, hey, you want to go try this yoga thing? And had no idea that yoga would completely transform my life, not just physically, but emotionally and in so many other ways. Yeah,
Yeah, yoga has that effect on like everybody
absolutely.
I've talked to, right? You're like, oh,
Yeah,
just one class, and then all of a sudden here you are teaching and doing so many amazing things.
yeah, absolutely.
So, can you share a little bit about what yoga has done for you, like specific benefits that you've noticed, transformations?
Sure. For me, one of the first physical benefits that was shocking was this is going back years ago, I was diagnosed with asthma, and it was environmental asthma from the company that I worked at. My office was on the on the other side of my office, there was this machine that was bringing in this like dust into my office. And so after inhaling it for about a year, I was diagnosed with environmental asthma, and I had to use an inhaler and periodically get steroid shots for many, many years. Well, after doing yoga for one solid year, 3 to 4 times a week, I'm just really working on breath work. I did not have to use an inhaler anymore, and I have not gone back to an inhaler, never had to have a steroid shot or anything. So, from a physical standpoint, that was one of the first things that I noticed. I mean, of course, you'll hear the flexibility and physical strength, but for me, that was so empowering because it was always scary when I couldn't breathe. So, just being able to work on that lung capacity was utterly amazing. And then I would say from stress management was probably the next thing because I also work in a corporate environment and my job is very stressful. But knowing breathing techniques, being able to do meditation, and even just taking those couple minutes and closing my office and taking some deep breaths, it's just so incredible how I'm able to get through the days where other people seem like they're struggling or they're anxious or, they're not able to cope. And so those are like a couple of the main things. And I just really think that it has taught me a lot about myself because it's not just going to an asana practice, doing the physical part. It's not just for me, it's so deep. There's the asana practice, there's meditation, there's breath work. For me, I do journaling, and then there's a whole other spiritual side of it. So I just feel like it picks apart all the different avenues that are important to me. And I just see myself always growing, always changing and evolving through this whole process. One of the things for me that's important is that when I am taking a yoga class is that I like to, whoever my teacher is that I want to take whatever it is that I learn with me off my mat and bring it into my world, into the real world, outside of my yoga mat. So Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that because that was something that I wanted to ask you is a lot of people don't know about the spiritual side of it and how journaling and all these other components really enhance your practice and how yoga is not just being on the mat. It's not just about the flexibility, it's all about the inner work that we do. So, can you give us more examples on how you use yoga off the mat in a more like less asana type?
Sure. I mean, so for me, like, yoga talks, if you really do research on yoga, but there's so much about peacefulness and, being centered and being grounded and giving back. So for me, service and advocacy is so important. So for me, it's about, something that is really speaks to my heart is like women's rights. So for me, it's taking my asana practice and, the spiritual aspect of it, and then taking it off my mat and, um, working with organizations locally, that are, for example, I volunteer with a couple organizations that, help women through domestic violence situations or, sexual assault, and, human trafficking and things like that. And so I don't know that I would have known about those things if it wasn't for, just, doing some deep research, through yoga and just, kind of the spiritual part of it. And for me, like, there's so many different forms of yoga. I think a lot of times people get hung up on, well, which kind of yoga to do. Well, try it all because, even me as a teacher, I might not be the right teacher for you, but there's always, a different teacher. My first, like really spiritual yoga class was Kundalini yoga, which is really different than the form of yoga I teach. And my teacher at that time, she was Hindu and I was Catholic. And, but it was fine because she would kind of like, teach with deities and things like that. But what I would do is when she would, talk about things that were different for me, I would just pray to God. So it just always brought it back to what felt good for me because it's my practice. It's not anybody else's practice. It's kind of what I tell my students that I am only your guide, nothing more. So if I'm saying something that doesn't resonate with you, that's absolutely okay because it's your practice. I'm here holding space for you and helping you, but it's your practice. And if you want to just sit there, you want to lie down in Shavasana, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's yoga itself, right? Listening to your body and doing what is needed. So I like that you really emphasize that in your classes because I know for me, sometimes I'm in a class and I'm, get a little bit of social anxiety, but I like that affirmation that it's my practice, there's no right or wrong. It's, as long as you're being safe, and that's what you're there for in the classes, keeping your students safe.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I love everything that you're sharing. So just to kind of paint a picture, how would you describe your path before yoga entered your life?
My path before yoga entered my life, I would say one of the things, and I am still like this. I'm still very busy. I still always have a lot going on, but I was always much more stressed about it and wasn't able to manage the stress at the same level. Whereas now I've learned more about boundaries and learned more about, just that sense of calm and just being able to take a break, take a step away, really be able to, go inward when it's necessary, take the time to journal, take the time to, for breath work. It's really about more of a self-care practice. Whereas before I never had that. Yeah, okay, I would go for that occasional massage, that occasional facial, or, any of those, expensive pampering. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love all that stuff. That's amazing. But that's not self-care. Self-care is not just the bubble bath. We all know that that's amazing, but it's learning about the boundaries. It's learning about finding what works for me and knowing that it's okay that I'm not going to connect with every single person or, you know, just doing what feels good for me. So
Yeah,
it's really about, for me, it's been a lot more about learning about my inner workings and about self-love for myself because I feel like I am a better mother now and a better wife and a friend just through my yoga practice. My husband will jokingly say, "You're getting a little crabby. I think you need to go do that yoga thing." And my husband doesn't do yoga, so he always calls me this hippie, and I don't know where he gets that from, but So
He already knows, okay, Tami needs some yoga in her life right now.
yeah, exactly.
So that seems like a complete 180, right? Like from being stressed out and having your asthma issues and everything to now, how you're living your life.
Yeah, and I've had even I have an adult daughter, and she has said that she has noticed, obviously growing as a younger teenager to an adulthood, noticed the change. But she's even said, like, even in the last 3 years. Well, I think that's just, and I don't think it's me so much aging per se. I think it's just um more work, more internal work, and that's really all about the yoga practice. And when I say yoga, it doesn't mean that every day, 7 days a week, am I doing an asana practice. Absolutely not. That does not happen. Like this weekend, we're doing some home improvement projects, so I have not stepped foot on my mat at all this weekend. But what I have done is every single day, because it's been really stressful doing this home improvement project. Every single day I have taken, twice a day I've meditated. I don't mean for 20 or 30 minutes. I mean, I've taken 10 minutes each time and just meditated alone in a separate room. So that way I am able to come back and, work with my husband and do our project, because it's stressful what we're doing right now. So, and just helping me to remain calm and focused on, because during this time of this home improvement project, we thought would be done this weekend, and it's not. So it's a little, stressful, but if you're able to find a way to feel grounded and centered in all your being, and especially, I mean, when you think about, everybody's thinking about 2020 and all the chaos and, everything that's gone on in 2020, from, social injustices and the pandemic and all that. I don't know how people don't survive without yoga and meditation and all these beautiful tools that you and I have, um, because it's really what's gotten me through it.
Yeah, same here, especially being like in lockdown. We're currently in lockdown again. And,
Oh,
so having that practice, you're right. I mean, how people are surviving, like you say, it's some people are really seeking these tools, and maybe they don't know where to find them, how to start. So I'm glad that you, like, everything you're bringing up, I'm like, that's a good point, like we need to share this message more. And I know that some people ask me like, oh, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible, right? But it's, you don't need to be flexible, like anybody can do yoga. There's different types of yoga. And so in that route, somebody who wants to start, is maybe dealing with a lot of stress and just doesn't know where to begin and has never done yoga, what would you advise them?
well, first of all, anybody can do yoga, and I will tell you that when my husband's grandma passed away during COVID, during this year, but she was 93 years old, and we were doing yoga together in her wheelchair up until the time she got really sick. So, and I've taught multiple people in wheelchairs, lots of people that aren't able to get down on the ground, so that, you can do yoga in a chair. We're not talking that you have to do yoga where you're putting, your ankle behind your head. I can't do that.
The
There's
pretzel yoga.
right, yeah, there's what some yogis will call advanced poses that I cannot do, and I've never been able to do, nor do I honestly care to do, because that's not the yoga practice for me. I think it's just a matter of, in normal circumstances, if you can go somewhere and find a studio that truly teaches a beginner's yoga class, I think that's the best approach. Now, I know it's difficult right now in the times that we're in, but there's so many online beginner yoga classes that you can take. Just, I mean, really Google it. YouTube has tons out there. I know you've taught some classes that are accessible to many people. So really just, it's not about being flexible, because that's one of the things that you'll get out of it. The more you do it, the more flexible you're going to become. And every day is different, right? So if I were to get up tomorrow morning and do a yoga practice after all the painting and all the stuff I've done this weekend, I mean, I could feel in my body right now, I'm super sore. So my yoga practice will look different tomorrow than it would have probably this morning. And that's okay.
Yeah, so it's tuning into your body. If you're completely new, find a beginner class. And so many people are teaching Zoom classes where they can see you. So that might be like a good, I know the local studio here in Texas is doing virtual classes. So there is definitely ways, and even just starting a journaling practice where you journal if it's guided, things like that. There's tons of avenues. You actually have a meditation on Insight Timer, huh? It's
Yeah, I do. I have two. Actually, the second one just went live. So they're an Insight Timer, if people aren't aware, it's a free app. And it's got thousands of teachers on there. So you can go on there and just find free guided meditations. And if you only have 5 minutes, you can look for 5 minute guided meditations. But yeah, if anybody's interested, you just go onto Insight Timer, you download it, and you can just find my name. And I have two meditations on there. One is really talking about our breath, and the other one is perfect to begin the month of November because it's a moment of gratitude. So it's kind of perfect. And they're both five, I think one's like 5 minutes, the other one's 7 minutes. So very short and sweet and can be used anytime during the day.
Yeah, it's definitely the accessible ones, right? You don't have to carve out this whole 2 hour ritual or anything like that. Just start with the bite sizes, 5 minute meditations, journal what it brought up, stretch how your body feels, and then be consistent with that. So, great tips for us today. Thank you, Tami. One last thing that I've been asking people, and I love this question,
Okay.
if I don't say so myself, but what would you tell a previous version of Tami? Like, what advice would you give Tami from back in the day?
Take a breath. And I actually just did that before I answered your question. I didn't even realize that. Um, I wouldn't, I've had people like, I started to say slow down, but I don't know if that's really it. I know that for me, I'm always going to be this person that's busy because I love so many different things, but take a breath before I decide to do something. So in other words, instead of saying yes to every single thing, what I've really started to do the last couple of years is before I say yes. So in other words, before you asked me about this month, I didn't just respond yes. I in the past I would have. So like, I don't respond. I don't say yes to every interview, every person that wants me in a group, or every date with a friend for lunch or something. But I check to see if it aligns with my values in the moment, in the season. And the season could be, you know, a season meaning it could be the year, it could mean if I'm going through something personally or whatever. But I just take a breath and I think about if this is what I want to be doing right now. And if not, then I set those boundaries and I just, reply no. And I don't feel guilty anymore. I used to feel guilty about saying no. And you just can't. You can't. For me, I used to always say yes. So I would be like working full time, going to school full time, and having a part time job and having a boyfriend and still going out and wondering why I was so stressed out.
Right.
That's
Uh,
exhausting thing then.
yeah, I mean, I can totally resonate with that. So I'm going to take notes, just breathe, slow down, think about it first. Thank you so much, Tami. This was such a it's always great talking with you. And I'm so glad that you're going to be our guest speaker this month in the community. You're going to be teaching us or talking about yoga for trauma as well as a restorative class, right?
Yeah, I'm going to lead you all in about an hour-long restorative yoga class, which is my favorite form of yoga to teach.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait. And you have some extra goodies that you're sharing with the community that I will be posting about in there. So I'm so honored that you're going to be helping us in there. We're going to be doing a 30-day yoga challenge, as well this month, where I'm going to be sharing yoga mind practices. So not asana, it's more journaling prompts using yoga philosophy. So if anybody out there wants to join us, I will share the link in the description, or you can just go to the dreamingyogi.org to sign up for that. And Tami, how can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Tami Galbraith. Also, my website is tamigalbraith.com, or in Facebook, I have a group called it's Tami Galbraith Restful Healing. And so I do live meditations in there. And it's been a while since I've done a yoga practice there, but a lot of live meditations and tips for mindfulness and a lot of self-care.
I love that. And I love your group. Every once in a while, I'm not like super active on Facebook, but when I get in there and I see one of your prompts, I'm like, yeah, journal.
Yeah.
So thank you for that encouragement and for everything that you do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I
Of
appreciate
course,
it.
I'm going to share all the links that you mentioned in the description, and hopefully you'll all join us in the community to get some yoga on and to just prepare for the holidays and everything else that's left in these last 2 months. So I will see you in there, and for everybody else, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.